Boom. Great. All right, so hello everyone. Welcome to Skype a Scientist Live. This is our first live stream for the semester. Really glad that you're all able to make it today. So during these sessions, we are really here to address your curiosity. So we have a variety of scientists coming in over the course of the next couple months, about one a month, to talk about their area of expertise. The scientists will introduce who they are, what they do, and why they like it. And then from there, it's really all about what you want to know. If you have a certain type of science that you'd like to hear about, let us know and we can have those on. Of course, as always with Skype a Scientist, you can request a scientist specifically for your classroom. So if you, or library or scout troop or homeschool group, if you have an area that you really want to dig deep on with your group, you can request a scientist. We match once per week. Typically, we match on Thursdays, and then the match emails go out on Fridays or over the weekend. Yeah, it's free, of course, so you should do that. And also, please tell other educators that we exist. We are here to provide this for as many people as we possibly can. Today, we're going to be hearing from Dr. Kory Evans. Kory is a good friend of mine. We go back years now. Kory is a fish biologist. He's a professor at Rice University, and he studies the evolution of fish skulls. Kory, I just made you a co-host, so you should be able to talk and share screen or etc. So hopefully you can get that working soon. For everybody at home, there you are. Wonderful,
Hey,
wonderful. Hi. For everybody at home, if you have a question at home at school, please submit them into the Q&A, and please only ask questions one time. It helps me keep track of things. So if you really urgently have a question, submitting it multiple times isn't going to get it asked faster. We tend to get a lot of questions, so I'm going as quick as I can. With that, Kory, I'm going to hand it over to you. If you could go over, who you are, what you do, and why you like it.
yeah, absolutely. So I'll share my screen and just give you kind of a little demo, and then I'll get into some of the more specific kind of nitty gritty things that I do. My name is Kory Evans. I am a professor at Rice University. I'm a marine biologist, fish biologist, evolutionary biologist. So I'm really interested in how fishes in particular have evolved and changed over time. I also study their development, and I study how the appearance of fishes maps to kind of where they live and how they make their living. So this image right here is actually a cool image for my PhD. When I got my PhD, I did a lot of work in the Amazon River. So I got to spend 4 years or 5 years even trawling the deep channels of the Amazon, catching some really, really weird fish. So this is one of my favorite photos because we caught this gigantic sucker mouth catfish basically on the bottom of the Amazon River. And when it first came out of the water, it was like bright white. So if you've probably seen suckermouth catfishes. If you've looked at a fish tank, you've seen like stuck to the glass or like eating the algae. They can get about that big. So this is like a really kind of dramatic catch for these guys. But yeah, this is kind of the gist of what we do. I do a lot of field work. I've done work with Sarah, in fact, in Japan. I've traveled to Moorea, French Polynesia, and now my current work really focuses more on coral reef fishes and parrotfishes. So I'll cut away for that and navigate some parrotfish images that I have, which are really, really cool. And I'll also take questions kind of at any point if anybody has them. But while you're thinking of those cool questions, I'll show you a really cool image of a parrotfish. So a lot of what we do for work is micro CT scanning. So what that actually means, if you've ever gone to the doctor and had like an MRI or a CAT scan, what we do with fishes is we'll put a whole fish in basically an X-ray machine, and while the fish is sitting in the machine getting X-rayed, we can actually rotate it. So what ends up happening is we actually get this really beautiful image of this beautiful 3D reconstruction of what the kind of internal anatomy of these fishes looks like. It's really, really dramatic. We actually, like literally 5 minutes ago, we had a dinosaur, like paleontologist prep person come in with a bunch of hadrosaur vertebrae. So that's where I was right before I hopped on the call. We're trying to position the hadrosaur vertebrae in the scanner as well, getting X-rays. So we can scan just about anything. And the lab, we kind of keep it open ended, so we scan kind of whatever interests us at the time. So for me, it's parrotfishes, but for my other grad students and postdocs, it could be anything ranging from Antarctic ice fishes to lizard fishes, you name it, mostly fishes. So yeah.
That's so cool. So what are the like, what does it mean when the purple is like darker bluer purple versus like pinky purple?
Oh right, yeah. Let me cut over to that again. Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, we have this kind of color coded by density actually. So the pinkest part of the purple, if you will, is located in the parrotfish beak. So these are actually the teeth inside the beak. So parrotfish teeth are some of the composed of some of the strongest biomaterials on the planet. So the only things that are stronger are like spider silk and chitin teeth. So these are really, really strong and really dense. So when we X-ray them, you can actually see the individual teeth inside that weaker and less dense bone. It's pretty dramatic, and you can see kind of the edge of the beak is probably the most dense thing here in the parrotfish skull. And then when you zoom out, you get like scales, which are going to be that really fine gray, and then like regular bone, which is kind of purple. Um, if you look really close, you'll actually see another peak, kind of another bit of pink here. And that's because parrotfishes have two sets of jaws. So these are the pharyngeal jaws inside the throat of the parrotfish. So a lot of fish, what happens is most fish don't chew with their what we call oral jaws. So when a fish grabs something, you usually don't see them chew before they swallow it. And what they do instead is they'll grab something, swallow it, and pass it back here to the throat, where they'll basically crush it up and swallow it that way. So most fish actually chew with their throats, if you will.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Kory, do you know how close you are to your microphone? You're a little quiet. Um,
Yeah, I can. I think I'll probably have to just talk louder. I think. But
Maybe just
yeah,
talk louder. Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. Sounds good. All right. So let's start asking questions. Tanner wants to know, do fish have tongues?
Fish absolutely have tongue. Yes. And it's really cool because some fish will even have teeth on their tongue, and it's very disturbing. But they'll actually use the teeth on their tongue to grind up prey. So they'll swallow something and then they'll basically rake it over with the teeth on their tongue.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Dior from Bridge Academy would like to know, do you have a favorite fish?
Yeah, but it changes like every month. So I think my favorite fish this month is probably the striped parrotfish. I think it's like a teeny tiny kind of miniature parrotfish, but it still has the really robust beak and all that stuff. And I just think they're really cool.
That's awesome. Um,
Yeah.
2MV wants to know, how many fish are there in the world?
Yes. So there's over 30,000 species of fish in the world. So if you take all the other vertebrate groups, so if you take the mammals, the birds, the reptiles, and amphibians, and you combine them all together, there's still more fish. So fish are the largest group of vertebrates on the planet and the
Very
coolest.
awesome. Caitlin wants to know, are there any fish that can breathe air?
Yes, lots of fish actually have the ability to breathe air. Some fish even have modified lungs. So things like gar, even some catfish can take gulps of air. So if you sit at a body of water long enough, actually, you can even see fishes come up and take a gulp of air.
Super cool. Argyle School grades 1 through 3 would like to know, do you only study fish from certain types of water or do you go between different types of water?
These days, I go wherever the fish are. So we have some coral reef fish, some weird deep sea fish. We have a paper coming out looking at the really weird anglerfish with the crazy teeth. So yeah, we go wherever the fish are essentially. We even have an Antarctic ice fish project that we're working on.
Very cool. We got a question from Linda. I heard that humans are phylogenetically fish.
Yeah.
Is that the case? And can you explain what the word phylogenetically means?
Yes. So humans are phylogenetically fish. So what the word phylogenetically means is it refers to something that we call a phylogeny or kind of like a tree of life or a tree of relationship. So if you were to draw out a phylogeny, you would look at, I'm trying to see if I can like pull up a phylogeny. I'll find it later. But a phylogeny is basically a tree of relationship. So it shows you which things are more closely related to each other. And you can kind of name those groups of closely related descendants. And the interesting thing about fish and humans and vertebrates in general is that all vertebrates are effectively fish. There are no characteristics that fish have that the other vertebrate groups don't have as well. Lulu Miller had that book that came out, Why Fish Don't Exist. And what she meant was that the classification of fish does not exist unless you group all vertebrates into fish. So humans are very closely related to fish. Most of the traits that we as humans inherited actually came from fish ancestors. So yeah.
Super cool. Thanks. We've got a question from 2MV. Do red-lipped batfish ever kiss?
Maybe they might kiss when they're fighting. A lot of fish will like jaw lock, so they'll bite each other's jaws and fight. I don't know if they ever kiss romantically.
Sounds good. John Liss wants to know, how much force does the parrotfish bite have?
Yes, this is a great question. I actually just was able to answer this 2 days ago. So it looks like they can bite down with about 29 newtons of force. Uh, I don't really have a scale of reference for that, but they can bite down with 29 newtons of force. The more interesting thing I think about parrotfish kind of force and how force is distributed across parrotfish is how strong their teeth are. So it actually takes about 500 newtons of force to crack a single pair of fish teeth. So that's multiple elephants standing on a teeny tiny tooth before it actually breaks. Um, so yeah.
Super cool. An anonymous attendee wants to know, did you go straight into your PhD? Like, what was your path to becoming the professor you are now?
Yeah, so I finished undergrad in 4 years and I went straight to PhD. I skipped the master's and straight to PhD, did that in a little under 4 years. And then I did two postdocs at the University of Minnesota, then Brown University before I got my job here at Rice.
Yeah. And for a frame of reference, 4 years or less for a PhD is fast, is very fast. So most people take 5, 6 years to get a PhD. For just like a broad brushstroke marine biology, Kory is just happens to be a rock star. So here we are. All right, we got Jeff. A question from Jeff. What is the smallest fish in the world? From Liberty Tech Charter School.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a debate over who's the smallest fish. But I would probably call it the Borneo peat minnow, which is really, 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 really tiny. The other competition is some small goby. But basically, the either one of them are really, really small. They reach breeding size and breeding maturity shortly after birth, essentially.
Cool. We've got a question from Ms. Pavoni's class. Can fish smell underwater and how do they do it?
Fish smell very well underwater. So fish, they have basically nasal cavities, just like ours. The only difference is that we can breathe through our nose, and fish can't. So it's just kind of a little dead end sac, but it has nerve endings with basically olfactory receptors or scent receptors that connect to the brain. Fishes are really, really good at smelling and tasting. Catfishes, for instance, have really great senses of smell and taste. They've got taste buds all over their bodies. So like a catfish is tasting all day long, tasting its environment. So they're really good at figuring out where food is and things like that.
Super cool. Linda from a biotechnology high school wants to know, how do you prepare the fish for the micro CT scan?
Yeah, great question. Mainly what we do is we'll probably catch the fish and preserve it in something like alcohol or formalin, and that's basically it. Once the fish is preserved, its body is stiff enough to allow us to scan it. The problem is, like we can't scan it frozen because the scanner gets really hot, so the fish will thaw. And if you move during the scanning process, much like at the doctor's office, if you move during the scanning process, you'll mess up the skin.
Cool. Our next question. So in the deep sea, any animals living down there are putting up with a lot of pressure, right? So how does water pressure impact fish faces?
Yeah, so it impacts it in many, many ways. One of I guess, the most obvious ways is that these fishes actually reduce the amount of bone they have in their skeletons. That makes them a little squishier. Oftentimes, will have reduced musculature as well, so they'll have these like softer, squishier bodies to deal with that increased pressure.
Very cool. It always amazes me how squishy like anglerfish teeth are. Like you
They're so
see,
squishy.
yeah, wild. On X-rays, have you ever seen baby fish in the mom's stomach?
Uh, So actually, that's a project we have going on right now. Most fish don't give live birth, so usually they'll throw their eggs up in the water column, and the males will throw the sperm up and they'll fertilize, and the babies will basically develop in the water. But some fish do give live birth, things like platies and swordtails. So one of the things we're working on right now is being able to scan into them and seeing the developing embryo. So in theory, we should be able to. But we haven't done it yet. We can see other fishes inside of fishes, though. So if a fish has eaten other fish, we find that all the time.
Very cool. All right, Mitch would like to know, what is the scariest fish you have ever studied?
Ooh, scariest fish. I haven't studied these guys, but moray eels actually like really scare me only because where I do my work, they're a little more aggressive than usual. Usually moray eels are pretty shy, so if you see them and you approach them, they'll like split back into their holes. But out in Moorea in French Polynesia, they come out of their holes and try to bite you. So you always have to be like aware of where your hands are and all that stuff. And they've got really sharp teeth, so it's the eels for me.
Pretty scary, yes.
Yeah.
All right. Blake from San Jose wants to know, how can you determine the age of a fish?
Yeah, that's a great question. So fishes actually have what we call ear stones or otoliths, and basically they have these really hard bones in the back of their head, and they lay down rings, much like the rings in a tree. So if you pop out an otolith, you can actually see the kind of circular rings, and you can count that by season or by year.
Cool. Chris, I'd like to know, do fish have ears?
Fish do have ears, yeah. So the ear bones that we use to age them are actually used for hearing as well. Some fishes are have really excellent hearing. So things like catfishes, minnows, some electric fishes, they have this additional connection between their inner ear and their swim bladder, which acts as kind of like a resonating chamber. So they've got really excellent sensitive hearing. Many fishes will grunt underwater to talk to each other and things like that as well.
Very cool. Margaret wants to know, how many fish do you think you have scanned in total?
I checked last week and it's like 6,000.
Whoa,
But it's probably more than that because that's 6,000 since I've gotten a rice, but I scanned fish before rice too.
that's so many fish. How many fish are you doing a day?
A day, let's see, I can get to like 20 a day or something like that.
Oh,
But it's usually more like 4 or 5 these days.
right. Wow, so many fish. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Sasha wants to know, what is the largest fish in existence right now? And what's the largest fish that has ever existed?
Ooh. So depends on your definition of fish. So in the more conventional sense, the whale shark is the largest fish in the water. It's a big shark. But technically, if all vertebrates are fish, you could say that the blue whale is the largest fish that has ever lived. The blue whale is one of the largest animals that has ever lived ever, and it's technically a fish. So yeah.
Great. Philza would like to know, how did you become interested in fish?
Yeah. So growing up as a kid, I was interested in animals kind of broadly and in general. So I actually used to keep like frogs and lizards as pets when I was a kid. But around high school, I started keeping fish, and I was just got obsessed with them. I started keeping these South American cichlids, and I realized that they were really smart and clever, and they had these different personalities, and you could only pair them with certain types of fish and things like that. And I just became really obsessed with that when I was like 14 years old, and I just followed that thread for the rest of my life.
Amazing. That's
Yeah,
great. Um, Tesla wants to know, can fish change color?
they absolutely can. They can change color very fast too, within a couple of seconds. So coral reef fish are really good at this. If they're stressed out or if they're hiding from a predator, what they can do is they can actually go from being really brightly colored to like camo patterned within a couple seconds. Fishes often even have like sleeping colors. So if you dive on a reef at night and you find a fish like wedged in a rock sleeping, its color pattern is going to look different than it does when it's out moving around during the day.
Cool. Very cool. Fatima wants to know, is it hard to become a scientist?
I don't know if I wouldn't say it's hard. It just takes a lot of work. But that's kind of how it is for basically any like professional thing. It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of passion, but it doesn't usually feel hard. It mostly just feels fun.
Agreed. Yeah.
Most of the days, yeah.
Yeah. Takes a long time, but
Yeah.
is
It
yeah,
does make a lot of sense. Yeah.
totally worth it. Um, Tanner wants to know, what is the largest fish that you personally have ever caught?
Ooh, tough. So I would say right now it's probably a tie between a mahi mahi that I caught off the coast of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, or sorry, the Florida Keys, and an alligator gar that I caught by accident in Louisiana on a floating dock. So they're both about 4 or 5 feet long. And yeah, that was the it's about a tie. I didn't take exact measurements on those guys.
Have you caught a sheep's head wrasse yet?
Sheephead wrasse, no, but we're going up to Hokkaido actually this summer, so we might be able to get them up there.
Yeah, I just saw one of I think I saw one of those in the Great Barrier Reef. It was a huge wrasse.
Oh, you're talking about the like the blue grouper thing.
That might
Yeah,
have been what I saw. I
yeah,
texted
no, we
you a picture when I saw it. It was so big.
yeah we haven't caught that yet.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, wildly large fish. Okay. Ibrahim would like to know, do all fish have the same number of bones? And about how many fish can be found in your, or how many bones can be found in the average fish?
Oh yeah, so fishes can vary wildly in how many bones they have, even within a single species of fish. Things like vertebrae can differ by two, three, or maybe even five. Within a species, the number of fin rays they can have varies a lot too. And in terms of the overall number of bones, even just the fish skull can have well over 100 bones in it. So fish have a lot of bones. So overall, maybe I would say like 300 bones, kind of within like your mean fish or your average fish.
Cool. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Is that more bones than us?
Yeah, that's more
We have
bones than us. The
200
parrotfish,
something?
yeah, we've got 200
Two,
something.
three? I can't remember. Yeah,
I thought it was like
something like
200
two or
something.
three.
So if
Um,
you count individual teeth, like a parrotfish beak will have like hundreds of bones just inside the beak alone. So yeah.
Wild. A fourth grader would like to know, are there any poisonous fish besides pufferfish?
Yes, there are a lot of poisonous fish. I would say many, especially coral reef fishes, are venomous. As far as poison goes, there are some poisonous fish as well. So pufferfishes have the tetrodotoxin, but there are other fishes that basically they'll secrete toxins in their skin. Things like soapfish, for instance, they look like groupers, but they're not. And if you grab them, they secrete kind of this frothy, foamy stuff out of their skin, which is how they get their name.
Cool.
And there's
Really
lots of venomous fish too.
cool. Yeah. Sweet. Zach would like to know, so we mentioned that some deep sea fish have kind of like bendy bones. How does that affect how they look on the CT scan?
Yeah, so deep sea fish are actually really hard to scan sometimes because they don't have really dense bones. And the bones can be like bent or warped. So usually when we're scanning deep sea fish, we have to adjust our settings quite a bit to be able to capture the differences in density.
Sweet. Let's see. SYDC would like to know, how deep in the ocean can we find fish?
Ooh, yeah. How deep? So you can find fish. The deepest recorded fish is the Hadal snailfish. And I don't remember the exact depth, but you can find fish well over a mile deep. So they get pretty far down there.
I want to say, did they see those snailfish at the Challenger Deep?
That was the Marianas Trench.
Right.
Is that part of the Challenger Deep? Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yep.
think Victor Vescovo, so Victor Vescovo does these like has this submarine that goes way down. I think they've been down there like 12 times. And I
Mhm.
want to say they saw one of those. So I think they go as far as you can go.
Which
Um,
is pretty sweet.
which we didn't even know 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So we're like learning things every week about the deep sea, which is so cool. Right. Charlie wants to know, do all fish have two types of jaws? Do deep sea fish also have the oral jaws and the pharyngeal jaws?
Many fish, probably the majority of fish have a second set of jaws in their throat, but some of them have lost it kind of secondarily. But even deep sea fish, things like anglerfish, you'll find pharyngeal jaws, which is what we call them, in their throats as well.
Sweet. Jura wants to know, how do some fish produce slime?
Yeah. Uh, so yeah, many fish have basically mucus glands in their skin. that can produce kind of this proteinaceous slime. So slime is usually used to kind of protect their bodies against parasites. It theoretically helps them move through the water more easily and more efficiently. And yeah, it's usually kind of just a antimicrobial defense. But sometimes like things like hagfish have the ability to produce tons of slime as anti-predator defenses and things like that.
So cool. If you've ever, want to go down a Google rabbit hole, Google the hagfish slime highway accident. It's a good time. I forget why hagfish were on the highway, but caused a lot of slime on the highway. Dr. Mays, fifth graders in Pennsylvania, woo, Pennsylvania. We're both from Pennsylvania. Want to know what is the most dangerous fish?
What is the most dangerous fish? The fish you're not expecting. No. I think it all depends on like how you'd imagine danger. So stonefish are really can be dangerous. If you're walking in these really rocky areas, stonefish they literally really do look like rocks. They're incredibly venomous though. So if you step on them and their spine goes through your foot, you're gonna have to go to the hospital and it could be fatal. Electric eels, if you're not careful and you're splashing around in a place where electric eels live, a 6 foot long electric eel can stop your heart. So that's something. And then, yeah, I would say that's kind of your two flavors of fish danger. The ones that shock you, like stargazers, electric eels, and the ones that envenomate you. I guess if you like were eating a puffer fish, that could be dangerous for you as well.
Yeah. Um, Caitlin wants to know if lightning strikes water, do fish get electrocuted?
Oh, I actually don't know the answer to that question. I would imagine yes, but I'm not sure.
I also think yes, but I think it kind of depends on the size of the body of water. Like,
Yeah,
I think if it strikes the ocean, there's so much space for that electricity to get dissipated across that like the fish might be like, ugh, but like they're not gonna die.
right.
That's my understanding. Unless you have a real freak accident. I think the answer is no. But if they're like a small, like a koi pond in your backyard, if that were to get
Yeah,
struck by lightning, then yes. Um, yeah, depends on the scales of stuff, I think. But I don't know that for sure. Bridge wants to know, can you tell us about the box of fish you're holding? The picture you sent us of you holding like a big box of fish. Can you tell us what the heck is going on holding a big box of colorful fish?
yeah. So that was in Maria last summer. So we were out there collecting Kory fish and primarily parrotfish to study what they eat, and also ship them back for CT scanning. So yeah, we had just basically collected a bunch of parrotfish off the reef, and we also got some on a roadside stand on the way back. Uh, and yeah, we were packing them up to ship them back to Texas.
Sweet. Charlie C would like to know, how do fish sleep? Are they nocturnal? Whenever I go fishing, they only seem alert early in the morning.
Yeah, fishes do sleep. That was actually one of the things that got me into fish was when I realized they could sleep. Because I had these pet fish and I walked upstairs and checked out my fish tank and they were all like laying on their side. So I thought something terrible had happened. But in the morning they were swimming around and I realized they were just sleeping. So fish do sleep. They don't have eyelids, obviously. So basically what happens is they basically shut part of their brain off and they have these kind of reduced activity patterns. If you're ever diving on the reef at night and you encounter a sleeping fish, you can even like swim up and kind of poke them and touch them. They're less kind of reactive to different things. Some fish are nocturnal though, so some fish sleep during the day and then they become more active at night.
Cool. Have we talked yet today about parrotfish bubbles, sleep bubbles?
Not yet.
We should talk about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So parrotfish, for example, have the ability to basically secrete a mucus bubble around them when they sleep. And they'll sometimes do this. So that's another way to kind of prevent parasites from kind of attaching to them, as they'll secrete kind of this big like mucus force field around them as they sleep.
So cool.
Yeah.
What is the first fish you ever caught? Nomi from San Jose would like to know.
Yeah. First fish I ever caught was a sunfish, like a little bluegill. I was at summer camp, Camp William Penn, if you know where that is, Sarah. Yeah, I was at Camp William Penn and I caught a sunfish on I think a piece of corn.
Sweet. Corn will do
Yeah,
it.
it'll do
Um,
it.
we've got a class from right outside Philly. How many saltwater species of fish are there in total?
Ooh. So there's about, I would say, 15,000 saltwater fish and about 15,000 freshwater fish. The number's actually really even between the two.
That's kind of surprising.
Yeah.
I don't know why I would expect to see more in the ocean. I guess more space.
You have
Cool.
more space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. What do fish eat in the ocean?
Ah, yes. Fish eat just about everything in the ocean. They eat aquatic vegetation, so plants, algae, other fish, plankton, crustaceans, sponges, worms, shrimp, squid, mammals. So they'll eat seals and birds if they can catch them. So they'll eat just about everything that lives. Yeah, if it's an animal, fish, there's a fish that probably eats it. Coral, yeah,
Yeah.
jellyfish.
The B9ers third grade class want to know, what is the deepest you've ever been fishing?
The deepest I've ever been fishing was a couple of years ago off the coast of Fort Lauderdale. We were fishing for swordfish, and we were about 1,200 feet deep. So I wasn't diving that deep, but we had lines that deep. And when you're fishing that deep, it's basically pitch black where the swordfish are. So you have these like really cool like lights that imitate squid on the line that are triggered by pressure. So once they get deep enough, they start flashing to bring fish in.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Um, uh, a person whose name I don't know, anonymous, wants to know, is every shark a fish?
Every shark is a fish. Yep.
Every shark is a fish. Very good. Sahib wants to know, how old can fish live to?
This is a good question. So it's kind of an open-ended question. Fish can live for a surprisingly long time. Even things like coral reef fish and clownfish can live like 30 years. And then there's some deep sea fish that can reach reproductive maturity. They don't even reach reproductive maturity until they're about 80. The Greenland shark has been documented to live up to 300 years. So there's a wide range for how long fish can live. And then there's things like little killifish that only live for like 6 months.
Cool. Mrs. Young's fourth and fifth grade class wants to know, in your opinion, why is it important for people to study fish?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of cool reasons for, or important reasons for why people should study fish. One is humans have interacted with fish for about as long as we've existed. Fish have been really important kind of culturally and economically. They're important as a food source. They're important kind of as a natural resource. Fish perform really important roles in their respective ecosystems. And I think most importantly, fish are just really cool. They're vertebrates just like us. And they've done some cool things that we haven't been able to do, like diving down super deep, generating electricity, all kind of being venomous, changing colors really fast. I think they're just really fascinating. And learning more about fish is just kind of enriching in general.
This is why I study squid, because they're
Yeah,
cool.
they're just
That's a
cool.
good reason. Yeah. Fatima wants to know, have you ever seen an anglerfish? Because it's her favorite fish.
Yeah, I've seen anglerfish. There's actually one of the cool things about anglerfish is that there are, yeah. So Sarah's holding up a deep sea anglerfish.
Yes.
But what's cool about anglerfish is that there are the deep sea ones, but there's also shallow water anglerfish that live in on coral reefs and in sargassum beds and things like that. So if you live near the coast and there's like a big raft of sargassum that blows in, if you pick through it, you can actually find things called frogfish, which are in fact anglerfish. They even have a little lure that they can use to attract prey. So you can even keep some anglerfish as pets in your fish tank.
That's so cool. We saw a frogfish together,
Yep,
sargassum fish, when we were in Japan. That was so
sure
exciting.
did.
It was
That
like
was fun.
this big. It was so cute. Um, Andrea wants to know, what predators hunt parrotfish?
What predators hunt parrotfish? So their biggest predators are people. People like to eat parrotfish; they taste really good. But sharks will also hunt parrotfishes, even kind of larger parrotfish. And when they're smaller, things like barracuda and other kind of reef predators will go after them too, and eels.
Sweet. Charlie wants to know, from first to third grade, are jellyfish fish?
Jellyfish are not fish, actually. So jellyfish are basically they're invertebrates. They don't have any bones, and therefore they're not fish. If it has
Sweet.
bones, it's fish.
Sweet.
It's a
Or
shark.
Anthony wants to know, how do flying fish fly?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So flying fish are really cool. They have these modified fins that are really kind of long. They look like wings basically. So what a flying fish will do is it'll beat its tail really fast to take up speed, then it'll leap out of the water and spread those fins and glide, and they can glide for quite a while.
Awesome. Many people at this point have asked, how do we tell the difference between a boy fish and a girl fish?
Yes. Sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's really impossible. So sometimes male fishes and female fishes will have different colors, so there'll be different shapes. Some of the male fishes will get these big humps on their head or really long faces in the case of electric fish. In other cases, the males will be differently colored than females. But I would argue probably in many cases, it's really hard to tell them apart.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. We got a question about fish eyes from Dr. May's class. First, how come when you go underwater as a person and you open your eyes, it looks blurry and like it kind of hurts and it's hard to see underwater, but we can see above water and fish can see underwater better. What's happening there? I'll just start with that question so we're not hitting you with two questions at the same time.
Yeah, so our eyes are designed to see through air. So that is basically the main issue. So if you ever put swim goggles on, that creates a barrier of air between you and the water, so you can see through the water really, really clearly. But just I guess peering through water is more difficult for our eyes. Our eyes aren't tuned to do that. Fishes obviously they evolved in water. They live in water their whole lives, so their eyes are tuned to see through water. And I would imagine some of them, not all of them though, would have trouble seeing in just plain air as well.
Totally. Goes into if you're like depending on what age your students are, you can talk about refractive indexes and how light moves through different things. This is also useful for microscopy, which I did a lot back in my day. Anyway, do you have any pet fish in your house?
I do. Sadly, I only have one fish right now,
Oh,
but I have a surgeonfish, which is a really nice Kory fish that's an herbivore.
cool. Are any fish bioluminescent?
Many. You could. There's an argument that could be made that most fish are actually probably bioluminescent, in terms of just biomass. So things like lanternfish, all the fishes that are kind of pelagic, that will come up from deeper water towards the surface at night. Many of those fishes are bioluminescent.
Cool. Anonymous wants to know how often do you leave the United States to study fish?
I leave the United States to study fish probably 2 or 3 times a year, depending on where we're going. Last year, I went to Belize, Japan, and some other, oh, Maria. So that was 3 times. This year, I just went to Japan and then I went to like Finland. So only,
Finland.
yeah, only twice.
Cool. Okay. I mean, I don't know why I react to that. I didn't know that you went to Finland. All those other places, I'm like, I know you go to Moray and whatever.
Yeah, I
Cool.
didn't tweet about it.
Amazing. Very cool. What methods do you use to collect fish?
Yeah, so we basically we take you can say we take the fight to the fishes. So however the fish, lend themselves to being caught is how we catch them. So sometimes we use kind of your typical hook and line fishing if it's a animal that will chase bait or something like that. You can use that to catch them. Otherwise, if you're chasing after herbivores, you can't like leave a hook out because it probably won't bite it. So we have spears. We use spears to basically spear the fish. If they're small, we can use nets like seine nets, or even gill nets. We can chase fish through a gill net and get them all stuck. Um, Other times we can use electricity as well, just like little shots to bring them out. So yeah.
How are we doing on time? Decent. Okay. Mrs. Young's fourth and fifth grade class want to know what is on your fish discovery bucket list? Is there something that you're hoping to achieve over your career as a fish scientist?
Yeah, yeah. I have a lot of kind of fish discovery bucket list. So one of the things we're working on right now is it's about to get a little bit molecular, but we're working on a kind of the genome of the parrotfishes. So we want to understand what genes are involved in the development of the beak. So we were just in Japan a couple months ago where we were able to collect some beak samples and look at gene expressions, and we just shipped all the samples out. So we're waiting to hear back on what genes are being expressed and things like that. So that is kind of one of the biggest things that's on our like anxious like what are we gonna learn? And yeah, yeah. There's also all kinds of like fishes that I want to collect and things like that.
Yeah. Awesome. Antonia wants to know what do fish do for fun?
Ooh, so that is interesting. So the real question is, can fishes have fun? Do fishes have fun? There is that nice video of that flounder that was just like catching waves,
Yeah.
and that was the first time I ever saw anything like that. So I don't even know if for sure if fish play. Mammals certainly play. I don't know where play evolved and how many times play has evolved. So it's unclear.
I'm gonna share that video right
Yeah,
now.
absolutely.
Because that was so wild. Okay. So here's that video of the flounder just like playing, appearing to play in waves. Um, which is pretty kooky. I thought this was wild yesterday, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at them go. Looks fun. Yeah, if play in animals is complicated. Where did my Zoom go? I don't know. Hard to say. Hard to define. Share? Stop sharing? There we go. Am I still sharing anything right now? I don't think so.
Oh,
Okay.
you are, yeah.
I am. Uh, okay. Well, very well. All right. I think we have time. Actually, you know what? We don't have time for any more questions. I'm going to ask you the same questions that we ask everybody at the end of every session. The two questions are, one, if you had everyone's attention in the whole world and you could ask them anything about their area of expertise, what would you ask them? Or what would you tell them, rather?
This is the question for me.
This is a question for you. You have everyone's attention in the whole world, and you can tell them one thing about your area of expertise. What do
Oh
you
yeah. Yeah. One thing I would tell them is that A, fishes have two sets of jaws, which surprises a lot of people. Another thing I would tell them is that some fishes have the ability to protrude their jaws like a third of the length of their entire body. Um, and I think the most important thing that I would tell them is just that fishes are cool. The ocean is a really cool, neat place, and it's something that we should protect. And it's something that we should value.
Very good. Very good answer. Sounds good. Hey, here's your next question. You still have everybody's attention in the whole world. You can tell them one thing about anything. Doesn't have to be your area of expertise. It's just a thing you want to tell everybody. What do you tell everybody?
Oh, that is a great question. I would probably tell them honestly that the new Avatar show on Netflix is not as good as the original, and that you should watch the original because it's better.
That's
And I
great.
would tell people to stop making live action remakes of things that we already have animated movies for. Um, Except
Great
Moana, they
answer.
can do that. Yeah,
Cosign. Great.
yeah.
All right. Well, Kory, thank you for taking an hour to hang out with us and answer our fish questions. We got through uh 55 questions
Nice.
during this rapid fire 45 minutes. And there are still 126 that we didn't get to. We got to as many as we possibly could, everybody. But if you all in the classroom or wherever you are like, I have so many more fish questions, as with many scientists learning more, sometimes when we ask questions, the answers just produce more questions. This is kind of the beauty of being a scientist, of learning things. So if you want to ask more questions, learn more about marine biology, about fish, feel free to request a marine biologist just for your class. Works for us. We can give you some reading material if you'd like. Check it out, skypeascientist.com. That's what we're here to do. Is there anything else you'd like to share, plug before we say goodbye?
No.
Great, cool. Thank you so much again. Thank you, Jasmine, for interpreting for us. We're grateful for you. Thank you all for coming. We will see you in October. We have two sessions in October. One is going to be all about a deep sea free phone game called Fathomverse. It's created by the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute. It's so cool. You get a demo of that so you can learn how to use it, how to play with it, how to learn from it. And then we're also having a session all about frogs from a frog biologist. So you can go to skypeascientist.com, click on live streams, and RSVP for all of those sessions. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye.